Hey, Patrick.
Pete, how are you?
All right. Man, I feel like I know you.
I
I watch all your videos so much.
thanks you. You know, you are getting an insight into my psyche. The lovable loser, as it were, like
Ah,
the Cleveland Browns of wargaming, really.
I don't think that at all.
Well, let me thank you for putting together the Mastodon server. That was excellent. I mean, the signal to noise ratio just cannot be beat.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I feel the same way. It's good to have somewhere else to go that's a little bit more sane. Hey, quick question. I'm in the room in Vassal. Should I join as the observer
Yes,
or are you going to
yeah.
give some
You
instructions on
you
how to
can
do?
join
Okay.
as observer for now, and then we'll figure it out as we go. If we actually get to do some playing.
Okay, cool.
And I just checking the list earlier, we had 8 people to expect, and then one person just sent his regrets and is not feeling well. So that's fine. I'm just happy it's more than me talking to an empty wall. Well, great. It is 1:01 by the clock. I am recording this for just so we have an archive of this, but do not feel if you want to speak up and ask questions, then you are recorded for the future and all posterity. Don't let that intimidate you. Feel free to contribute, or if you have a something that you are desperately want to ask, that is what we are here for today. I like to keep this very loose and easy. The only thing I enjoy as much as playing Combat Commander is teaching Combat Commander. So I am just pleased as punch that you all are here today. My name's Patrick. Hello. And I do have a channel, which I'm going to bury that lead. I will send you the link to that later if some of you have not seen that. But yeah, the recording I'm going to do for this one, I'm going to keep it extremely raw. I just throw it out there as content. So I'm not going to do my usual editing on this one. So we're just going to let it go where it goes. And I will take this. I have a framework that I use for teaching Combat Commander, but at any time feel free to stop. One thing I will use a lot in the vassal module as you are coming in, do set yourself as observer for now. Not that that has any bearing on this right now, but if we do end up putting you guys on sides and having you go through some paces, then we will assign you some sides later. But for now, observer works great. I will be using, and there, as if on cue, is the cat. Phoebe, aka Battlecat. She hears me talking and she wants to come in the door. So I'm going to see how long I can keep her out there. I'm going to be using the little active pointer here. If you want to use that, it is on Windows, just Alt and left mouse click, and you can click anywhere on there, and that will highlight something that you are trying to draw attention to. If you're on a Mac, if you're using this on iOS platform, I believe it's Command and click, I think, but I don't know because I'm not a Mac person. So let's see. We got Charles. Hello, Charles. You're muted. So if you do, there you go.
Hi, yeah, I was just meeting out of
Oh,
habit, so.
absolutely. Yes. Please do. Just as default, keep yourself on mute or push to talk, just in case you, like me, have cats and dogs and babies and whatever. I've got one good cat sleeping right behind me here on the bed. She knows how this works. So we got Jack, we got Jeff, we got Pete, and me. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So who out there, I would say by show of hands, but who actually has any experience? Who's just here to see what kind of silliness I can pass on to a new generation? Is there anyone with combat commander experience? Okay, that is perfect. We got fresh meat. We got boots, new conscripts. This is for those of you who have never played this before or even taken the opportunity. I will set your framework, your frame of reference here. This is GMT tactical level squad level World War II combat game released by Chad Jensen 2006. There have been various and sundry battle packs released since then. It is even though Chad is no longer with us, his wife Kai and a few others have still maintained that in the GMT presence. So it will be constantly in reprint, although it is some of the aspects of it, like Mediterranean, need a little help on that P500. So I'm going to encourage anyone that gets into the system to, if you don't have a copy yet, don't buy it on the aftermarket. You can, try to help others by getting that P500. That being said, frame of reference, if you've played Squad leader or advanced squad leader, it has the tactical considerations of that. If you've played up front, it has what I call the mechanisms and the abstraction and the chaos of the card play from that. And if you take the Reese's peanut butter cup, peanut and butter and chocolate mixed together, put them together, you have Combat Commander as sort of the next level abstraction of that. So if any or all of those are enjoyable to you, then you're in the right place. To some people, they do not like the chaos, they do not like the over abstraction, and they don't like the mechanisms of the card play because I really want to move this unit here. And sometimes through the fog of friction of war, you can't do that through this mechanism. So people oftentimes have to check what they know from their squad leader background or advanced squad leader and just kind of go with the flow. That's right there in the book. Chad says, go with the flow. That's what you do in this game because anything can and will happen. That's why I love it so much. So the framework I use for teaching this is, since we're using the Vassal module, and those of you who are in the room can see it, I'm going to kind of go through a little bit on the tools because those are the natural they are the marriage of playing Combat Commander live on Vassal. There are some tools there that help with things like over here on the right hand side, you've got die rolls, events, and random hexes. Those are built into that. So in lieu of actually physically flipping cards as you would do at the table, you can press these little buttons to do that. So I will talk about those. I will talk about the toolbar at the top, and some of the things are pretty intuitive, like the nationality symbols are your card windows. Everything is window driven here. So if I click open the American button, it opens the American hand, which is empty right now. It's bereft of cards except for the initiative card. But you can do that with any of those, even as observer. In the observer mode, if I have any cards in there, you will not see. You'll only see the back of the card. So there is secret information. But I just going left to right, real broad brushstrokes. The ones you're familiar with Vassal. You've got the undo button or the undo last, and it remembers all the steps, so you can use that as your safety undo if you need to. We've got the server control windows, which I have open right now. I'm going to close that just so I can see who's in the room. The little doorway there, that's where you, quote, surrender a side. That's when you can change from observer to another nationality. So we'll use that in a little bit. You sort of got the default, not sort of, you actually have the default notepad there, which you can use for various and sundry text things that you want to copy and paste in there. You can do that. That's very handy. And you have some of the charts from the game that are programmed into, you have player aids here with all the various and sundry things like mines, wires, that's that little green or the white cross on the green background, just to tell you some things about fortification and artillery. You have the big marker window, which is the gentleman with the howitzer and the sighting. That's where you will get to most of the pieces that you would need in game, markers being the most active one. Markers will have everything from mines to wire to fires, all sorts of stuff. You'll use just some players like to just pull out a bunch of those and put them over here on the right hand side just so they're always at, as if you were playing at the table. I don't particularly find it difficult to go in there because I know where stuff is and I grab it. Otherwise, it's tabbed by your nationalities, so you can go in there and each one of them have the same setup. You've got leaders, you've got squads and teams in the second little drop down there, and then at the bottom of that drop down you've got their weapons, their support weapons. So each one of those will get you what you need depending on if you need to grab something like a reinforcement event will come up and you may need a new unit to come on board. You can grab those from there. The stop button, everyone's stop button, so if you got your speakers turned up loud, here you go. It does give you a little machine gun sound. That's an interrupt just to get your opponent's attention. If you're playing this live and they're moving, you want to take the opportunity to shoot at them, to engage in opportunity fire. That's what you would use that for. You don't have to. A lot of people just go stop, but some people really like. This one is full of sound effects and things to get your attention, which some people turn off, but it really is. Once you get used to it, it's like, oh, that's an event trigger, that's a time trigger, that's a jammed or a sniper. So some of those things are sound cues that here on Vassal really help us. Then we have, I'm not going to well, yeah, I'll push it. What the hell? We have the time event button here. This game, when I will certainly come back to this, but this is a time button. Somebody just pushed it for me, so that will trigger the time advance through the game, and each scenario is programmed with a range of certain number of turns that you have. So this one started, I believe, on 2, and we've bumped that. I'm going to back that up a couple there, but you can see that those are there. One of the things, there's a lot of automation, not as much as it used to, but this one has a lot of automation so that when time advances, it will clear away decks, it will put things, it will move that forward. So there's some good accounting tools that happen when you press that button. Next order is just the one that you use moment to moment. You play a card from your hand. When you complete whatever that order is, you'll hit next order, and that just sweeps it away to the discard pile for you. And then the most prominent one there is the little spanner, wrench, and screwdriver. That's your stage map. And most of these scenarios are pre-programmed with all of the units that you'll need at startup right over here for both Axis and Allies. So it's very easy. You don't have to go digging for them. You just, here's everything that you need for the scenario, and you follow along the scenario card, and you just put the stuff on the board. So that staging map is invaluable for most games of this. Then you have the boneyard, the little skull and crossbones there. That shows you all the eliminated units. You can see that there are 2 surrender flags, one for the Axis, one for the Allies, and a number associated with that. So that's how many units can be eliminated before they are forced to surrender and end the game. So the Germans have 6 in this one. The Americans have 9 in this particular scenario. Then the next one's the nationality windows there. You have German, Russian, American. Those are the Europe. They come with the original Combat Commander Europe. And then you have English or British, Allied minor, and Axis minors. Those 3 there. Those come with the Mediterranean. So if you have the physical Mediterranean game, then that gives you 3 extra decks and all the units that go with those. Allied minors being everything from the French to the Greeks to whatever whatever the scenario may depend on. They're not the primary. Then you have the Axis minor, which are anything from the Finns to the Italians, as you see here. Or whatever are necessary for that particular scenario. And those are oftentimes one of the considerations on the game as a whole is each one of the decks has a slightly different composition of cards depending on the nationality. So Americans may be stronger at firepower, but less so on other orders. So we'll talk about that when we get to orders. And then the generic tools here from where it says units with the 3 little binocular sets. The units let you toggle. You can turn on and off units so you can see the terrain behind it. All is anything and everything. That includes wire and mines and actual terrain enhancements. And then the line of sight tool, you can use that as basically a string of dental floss to draw between 2 hexes. It will tell you the range, and you will be able to see if you are encountering any line of sight obstacles between that. Okay. And then you have the eraser button, which is when you're playing this live face-to-face, things will become activated. So for example, I will activate this unit right here. It's got a green halo on it. Now at the end of my turn, I would basically clean the board up by hitting the eraser, and that removes all the halos. So that's just a visual cue that those units have activated. And if you're doing multiple orders, since you can only do 1 order per unit in a turn, that allows you to see that, oh, okay, it will turn to a red one after you hit next order. So when you're completely done with your whole turn, whatever orders you're going to do, you just hit that little eraser and everything goes away. Just taking you on a tour of the actual map here. Right here we have the order of battle display. That will tell you the 3 critical pieces of information in this game. One, it will tell you what quality of troops that you have depending on the scenario. They can run anywhere from crappy green conscripts to your average GI Joe to elite commandos, right? It will also tell you down the left side how many orders that you will get to perform as that nationality on your turn. That's literally how many individual order cards that you will be able to play and execute. And that will also tell you when you cross that matrix there together, you can see, the Americans are here, they are line units, with 3 orders every turn, and then finally it tells you their posture for this game. So in this particular training scenario, we don't have attacker and defender. We both have recon status, which if you open up any one of the card windows up there, you can see that that is what determines how many cards you get to hold in your hand. From left to right, you can see there's a little arrow there for your capacity. If you scroll it down a little bit on the bottom, you see with Defender, you get 4 cards. Recon, you get 5 cards. Attacker, 6. And then in some cases, Invaders get 7 cards, depending on the scenario. Then we have the year, of course. That's going to determine a lot of things, but historically, from the narrative's perspective, D-Day events are going to occur in 1944. It will also determine when you get reinforcements. You will make a die roll, and certain reinforcements are available in early parts of the war versus late parts of the war. So that matrix that's on the back of the, or on your command card, or your reinforcement cards, your order of battle that you get with the physical game, they do not put those charts here in the Vassal module for obvious reasons and copyright, but you will look that up during the game. You roll, okay, we're 1944 right now, I roll a 6, and you look at that matrix to see what units may become available for you for certain events. Then the heart and soul of the game here is the time track. Depending on the scenario, it can start from 0 and go to 6. Most scenarios are 6 to 7 time units long. I say time units because people are like, well, what's a turn? Well, we'll talk about that. But you can see the most extreme goes up to 12 time units, and then that corresponds with a 2d6 for obvious reasons, or reasons that will become obvious to you later. And then after 12, it automatically will end on the 13th time unit. And then finally, we have the victory point schedule here. It is a 0 sum. So you are opposed. So whenever I earn points, I will take them away from my opponent first, as me adding them. Objectives here on the map, which we will come back to when we talk about terrain. But there's usually 5 objectives on every map, and you don't know what they're worth unless they're programmed into the scenario. In this particular scenario, we look down at the very bottom there, and we see we have an open objective saying that victory point location number 5, which is right here behind my fire card, right here, move that out of the way. So this bridge right here is currently worth 2 victory points to the person that holds it. And this is always in real time, so that will instantaneously change from setup through the moment that somebody changes that ownership. And when you do change that ownership, because this is a 0 sum game, if you own it, Pete owns it, he's got the 2 victory points for it. But if I take it away from him, I take away his 2 victory points, and now I give them to me. So most of these objective chips are worth we call it a swing. So this one is a 4-point swing when it changes hands. I just shotgunned a lot of information at you all very quickly. Is there any opening questions before I move on to the cards? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Fantastic. All right, well then let's talk about the cards, because the cards are what make the game go. In this situation, I told you that we're going to have a handful of 5 cards on each side. And I've got them arranged here as such to show you the basic mechanics of Combat Commander. You are either moving or advancing. Okay, so that is how you logistically get these units around on the map. You are performing some kind of a firing at other units. We have recover and rout, which are 2 sides of the same coin. Then we have artillery request and artillery denied, which in this situation we don't have a radio, so these cards, and you can see that they also have some notation here of defender only for actions. Basically, these cards are completely worthless because we have no radio to call in off-board artillery, nor do we have a defender posture in this particular scenario, so these cards would just be trash in hand. And then finally, true trash in hand, we have command confusion cards, which, if left unchecked, will pile up in your hand unless you can do something about them. So on every card, you have 4 to 6 critical pieces of information. I'm going to go through them all here. We'll start with the very top here is the order. And the order is what corresponds with how many orders that you are entitled to play on your turn. So I as the Americans in this one, can play up to 3 individual orders in my turn. The order will, once you play it, you can either perform it on a single unit, or you can perform it on a leader who is within command radius of his subordinates. So in this case here, this line unit, my line squad, which is 4 figures. We'll talk about the counters here in a minute. My line team, which has 2 figures on it, they are within 2 hexes of my leader. So if I were to activate him, I could then perform this move order through him onto these 2 subordinate units. So command and control is vitally important in this game. You can do stuff one-off on these individual units, but it is far from effective. Okay, so the difference between a move and an advance card, a move lets you move the entire movement allowance of the units, plus any bonuses they get for walking along roads or having command encouragement. And that will make more sense here when I go through the individual counters. The difference between a move and an advance is simply you tell a bunch of units, 1 or more, they are moving from 1 hex just to the adjacent hex. That's it. It's just 1 minimum move. But the importance of that is there's 2 really big reasons that you use move versus advance and vice versa. When you play a move, your opponent has the ability to perform opportunity fire. And for every hex that unit moves through, he's taking fire from your opponent. So moving, it lets you move farther, but it does come at some danger. And the reason you would also use an advance is the only way you can enter into melee or hand-to-hand combat with your opponent. So moving doesn't allow you to do that. You have to get up next to him and then advance into that hex to initiate melee combat. So that's how you get around the map. Firing, that's probably pretty self-explanatory. You notice, though, this has both an order and an action. Now, this is unique to this particular vassal setup, which I think is a great little, somebody photoshopped this in. But if you have the physical cards, it just says order, but there's also an implied action as well of firing. The difference between an order and an action, and I'm getting slightly ahead of myself here, is an order is something you perform on your turn. An action is something that you can play from your hand at any time. And I put that emphasis mine. Anytime means that as long as the conditions are met for the action, which we will kind of address here in a minute, whatever the conditions are, you may play that card at any time, whether it's your turn or not. So there are advantages to do that in addition to orders that enhance firepower or enhance the capability or to make an attack on your movement, whatever. There are some, as I pointed out earlier, that are defender only. So they're great little gotchas that somebody's moving and, oh, you just stumbled into a minefield. Whoopsie. So there's lots of fun to be had with that. And again, that encourages the chaos of the game. As these units move and get shot at, they are going to potentially break. And the break has a red stripe across the top. So the first time that they are broken in combat, they are flipped to their degraded side. You can see that these numbers have reduced. Their effectiveness has changed. If they are forced to break again, they are then eliminated from the game and they go to the boneyard, to the dead pile. And that is points for your opponent. So there's lots of different ways to get points in this game. There are capturing objectives, straight up eliminating units, or exiting units off of your opponent's side of the map. So those are the big 3. And there will be some events that pop up that just sort of give you that, as my Cajun friends say, a lagniappe, where you just like, hey, you you own 3 victory point locations right now, so here, have 3 more points. And that can swing the game and enrage some people because combat commander. So as they break, you don't want them to stay in this particular condition, so that's where a recover card will come in. And you play recover as an order, and it's not an automatic, it's a recover attempt. So you'll notice that this line, this one right here, this guy is out in the open, and again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but he's got a defense value, and you're rolling to see if you can get under this value, and certain things will enhance that. Like if you are in cover, like in a building, then this number will be improved by die roll modifiers. So it'll be, higher, and you're always trying to get under that number to rally them. And if you do, then you just flip them back over, right? And you can see that some units have quite a bit of difference. So like these Americans, they get better under stress. Their defense value, which is in the upper right here. Normally they're just a 6, but if they break, then they become an 8 plus modifiers. So putting guys in buildings and in foxholes and in defensive positions with a leader will give you some extra bonuses that really make them difficult to hopefully not fail their recovery attempt, but also to follow that up is to rout them off the board. Routing is the opposite of recovery. Recovery you can think of is it's a card that you play on yourself or on your side as a whole. You will go through and make checks for every unit on the map that is broken. And one by one, they will either succeed or fail. A rout is the opposite. You're attempting to make your opponent's units flee off the map. You go one by one to each broken unit, and timing is everything on that. You probably don't want to do it on one unless you're just trying to get the card out of your hand. But if he's got 3 or 4 units near his side of the map, and you play a rout on them, potentially you can make them flee off of their own side of the map, which is eliminating them and giving you victory points. So not only can you march across the map to get into their rear areas, you can force them to flee the map and get points that way. So that's how routing works. Like I said, artillery request and artillery denied. Basically, you're calling in off-board artillery to either fire for effect, or if the radio has the ability to lay smoke, you can send out a spotting round and put a nice, beautiful cushion of smoke and envelop your enemy in obstruction, right? Artillery request and obviously artillery denied, you will play on your opponent to try to force his radio to have interference or static, or it just broke because one of the tubes broke in transport, whatever. Typically, they work the same way. They have 2 states. They are active or broken. If you break them when they're already broken, they are eliminated completely. So you can play, very crafty players will have 2 artillery denieds and go, hey, first order, I break your radio. Ooh, second order, your radio is now gone. And there will be much wailing and gnashing of teeth with that. And then finally, this order here is no order at all. It's command confusion. It's just crap. It just builds up in your hand. There's quite a few of them in the deck. All you can do on your turn is to discard them from your hand, or, as we move on to the next part here, before I move on to the next part, is everyone clear with orders?
Yeah, I got one question. Yeah, are all orders worth only 1 action or 1 point? Like we say that we have 3 orders right now for the Allies and the Germans. Is each card only worth 1 order, or are there some orders that are worth more than 1?
That is correct. You play 1 order, and that is 1 particular piece of action you get to do. So you get 3, basically, and that's also a good way. You can kind of look at your hand. Sometimes you're like, did I play 2 or 3? I don't remember. And if you've got 2 cards missing from your hand, then you're like, oh, okay, I've already played 2. But that's not always absolute, because that moves us into the concept of actions. Actions, like I said, can be played whenever the condition is met. So if somebody is bebopping around over here and your opponent has played fire and he's firing at them, well, perhaps a good one to chain with that is, I've got crossfire in my hand. you play that, and now you are enhancing your fire attack on that particular unit. Or if you've got a machine gun, let's say I've got this medium machine gun here and I'm firing at my opponent, I can play this sustained fire. I've got a machine gun. I am holding that trigger down for all that's good and holy, but if I roll doubles, then that overheats it basically and it breaks. And you can see it has a red stripe as well. It also has, I'm getting a little ahead here, but you can see it has some repair possibilities and elimination possibilities that is generated on a random number, which we'll get to in a minute. So any and all, moving, if I'm a moving unit, I might want to throw out some smoke grenades here. And I grab a little smoke chit and I throw it. And I get to see what it is first. I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. So these run from 1 to 10. I might throw out smoke to obscure my line of movement so that when somebody's shooting at me, that it reduces the capability of their fire attack. So popping smoke is always a good thing. It helps obscure what you're doing. We got assault fire, and most of these will have some kind of condition on there. So in this case here, this line unit, I'm going to rally him. It says make one fire attack while I'm moving. So that's cool. I'm not only am I moving, but I'm firing with abandon as I move down the road, as long as the unit has boxed firepower. Well, this unit right up here does indeed have a box around his firepower number, which you don't know that yet, but I'm telling you, he's got firepower. So I could do that. I've chained together, basically, I've broken that rule that we just talked about, that I played an order, but I also played an action to give me the capability to fire as I was going. So that's pretty cool.
Can you play 2 actions on an order? So if I order that guy to cross, can I play action, throw smoke, action, assault fire, action, something else?
Jack, you are a genius. Thank you very much. That is correct. You are correct, sir. As long as the conditions are met, you can play as many actions as you wish. So yes, if you've got 3 smoke grenades, that is a wonderful way to pop smoke as you're moving along. And yeah, you can do that. So actions are very, very powerful because, and this is just a rule of thumb for me, yes, you are oftentimes going to get a handful of command confusion cards and crap, but you also have options here with sustained fire. So you can enhance other orders by using trash cards, and I'm saying that with air quotes, but this is still pretty valuable as a sustained fire. So I play a fire card, I start shooting, and then, I can get this out of my hand by using it as sustained fire. I've now enhanced my fire, and I've gotten that piece of trash out of my hand for the future. So very important is to always pay attention to your actions, because every card's got something on it that you can use. Occasionally there's one that's just command confusion, and it's got something on there like, what do we do now, Sarge? And it's just absolutely a piece of crap card that all you can do is discard it. You can't, it has no intrinsic value. And then finally, the actions here that are defender only. These are the ones in those scenarios which are just fantastic. So somebody just thinks he's the bee's knees, he's moving along, and you just throw out wire, and now you've just stuck him in some barbed wire for that hex, which requires, they're stuck there, and then on their next move, they have to use all of their movement just to get out of the wire, because it really slows them down. So you can really take it out of your opponent. And then hidden unit, if you choose not to play any orders from your hand, you may discard up to your nationality's limit. So I believe the Germans can discard up to 6 cards. The Americans, I think, have 5. I don't have my chart right in front of me. And then lesser quality, like the Allied miners, the French, they get to discard a maximum of 1 card, which is just terrible. It is so hard to play the French sometimes, because if you've got 3 command confusions in your hand, it's going to take you a little while to get that crap out. But the Germans are like, we throw away the whole hand and draw 6 new cards, or however many they need. If you get into this discard battle with somebody, and that's going to happen, there's going to be an ebb and flow of this game where you're just getting trash out of your hands and you're building something for the future. There are some benefits to doing that. If your opponent discards a card, hey, I got a hidden unit because I'm playing on that. So sometimes that will force your opponent to think twice about just ditching cards all the time, because if you've got some of these in your hand, you're bringing new stuff onto the board. So there's a poker element to this game of bluffing, obfuscation. Does he have a fire card? Am I moving at the right time? Should I move this unit first? Just draw out that fire card. That's the rich mechanical tapestry of Combat Commander that we all love. So that's moves and actions. Everybody good with that? Awesome. All right, and then finally, the cards also act as the engine for the game in three ways. One, they have the die roll on there, so there's 72 cards. They have from Snake Eyes to Boxcars twice, so you've got a 1 in 72 chance of drawing something that you need, and you can do all the other stats. You've got how many sevens there are in the card combinations, so that is the normal distribution of cards here. There's a red die and a white die, which will be applicable for certain things. It'll tell you use the red die versus the white die, whatever. But most of the time, when you draw a card over here, I do it, and it's doing a draw for me. I'm going to keep drawing here until you hear one of the triggers. Of course, they'll never come up. There we go. And that is your little device. That's your little reminder that you just triggered an event. So some of the cards, like this one down here, and then the one I just drew, and then this one right here, it says jammed. Anything with a red boundary around it, that is known as a trigger. And those will come up through the normal operation. They only occur on dice rolls. So I drew an event here. I triggered it. We take a momentary pause. And then I will come down here and I would draw a subsequent card, and it will tell me what the event is. So the event is reconnaissance. My opponent must reveal a secret objective. Well, boo, he's currently got no secret objectives, so nothing happens with that event. So all of the cards will be used to generate all of the attack and defense rolls and any generation of events like we have here, or we get another one. I'm going to keep. That's a perfect one. We got time. This is a great time to talk about time. You can hear the shuffling effect. The game continues through the process here until either somebody hits a time trigger, in which case we take a momentary pause, and we go through the time advance process, which is on your little card there. Basically, you advance the time a step. So I'm going to hit this little time advance. And it moved, and you see it took care of everything. It swept everything away and all that. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to undo that. But it moves the time space forward, so now time has advanced a little bit. Pressure starts to build because you have a sudden death marker here that the game, you start checking for the end of the game when you get to a certain time marker. You'll do that. You'll remove a smoke, so I would dissipate a smoke here. I will reset my deck. I would go into the little triple card window up here, and whatever cards that I've drawn so far in my discard, I can right click and say to a draw pile, and they will throw them back into my main hand. Then we would check for sudden death if we were at the sudden death mark. And basically what you do is you draw a card. So let's see, we are at time marker 7. The person who triggered the time advance would then draw a card to see if he draws a number that is between 6 and 1, basically less than whatever the current sudden death location is. So if we are at time point 7 and that's sudden death, anything less than a 7 would instantly end the game. Right there, boom, done. With the exception of this wonderful initiative card that's over here. The initiative card always sits with one player. If you go to a convention with some real diehards, they will actually physically have a grenade, a dud grenade on a little plaque or something, and they'll hand it back and forth. But this allows you to force a reroll of anything. You surrender the card to your opponent, so I'm going to I click on it, it gives it to the axis in this case, and I'm going to reroll my roll that I made and hopefully get better, right? And they can see the results of that, and they can say, no, I would like you to roll it again. And they, of course I broke it. I was wondering what that was. I'm gonna undo that a couple. There we go. And so it can go back and forth, and because you can use that for any die roll, when we get into melee combat, that card can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and just the amount of tension that can come. You're like, do I give him the card and try to re-roll it? Do I just take it and suck it up? Yeah, this is this wonderful, stew of agony that comes with the initiative card. All right, so that's a time advance, and barring that, if sudden death were not to occur, we'd go through the remainder of the stuff, and then the defender in every scenario will get a point. So you can see that if one of the players were defender in this scenario right here, as time moves 6 spaces, they're going to get a minimum of 6 points automatically just because of the nature of them being the defender. So you often mentally have to do that little calculations, like how many points do I need to get to offset what the defender is going to get just through the natural progress of time. That's this another one of those little things you can't necessarily teach. You just kind of have to go with the moment and the flow of the game and try to figure out, oh, crap, how do I get points to offset that? Let's see, we did, and then we had a trigger up here for jammed, so that would only be in effect if I was, and this happens to me all the time, of course, you're firing a machine gun, you're feeling pretty good. Not only is it a snake eyes and it's just a crappy fire attack, but lo and behold, it has jammed your weapon, and it sits in this jammed status until another one would come up. Let's see if I can find one here. We'll get it here in a minute. I'm sure there's got to be one. Of course not. No, I don't want event. No. Wow. When I actually need a sniper. Anyway, there's a sniper one in here. Forget it. There's a sniper one that will force the player to draw a random hex. And you can see I drew this random hex. I came down here and it put it over here. Put a blue marker around it. And in addition, what the sniper does is any unit that is either in or adjacent to that hex may be broken by the person who drew that. So you could, you just have sniper activity out in the woods and boom, they shot somebody and they caused that unit to break. The other very important factor in that is you could see that it is M6 as the random hex. The number on that, the 6, is important. I come up here and I check that against any broken equipment. And on a 1 through 4, it would fix it automatically. On a 9 or a 10, it would eliminate it completely. So in this case, that 6 did absolutely nothing. They're still charging that handle, trying to get that barrel out, whatever it is to fix that machine gun, but they did not succeed. So die rolls all on there, and as you can see, every one of them has a location on there. And the decks do actually have different locations. So the German locations and the American locations, I think, are kind of off by 1. So that there is total coverage between Axis and Allies, no matter which 2 decks you're using. So yeah, there's just stuff popping up on the battlefield all over. All right, so 45 minutes in. How am I doing? How am I doing, Clarence? I'll take the silence as good. Pete, I can't hear you. I see you're talking, but
Yeah, great.
Oh, okay, good. There you go.
Yeah, great so far.
Good deal. Have I confused anyone utterly? Perfect. All right, so let's talk about the map. As you can see, you have a variety of... well, actually, no. Before the map, let's go on to the units. I'm going to rally these units and bring him back over here and just talk about the numbers on here. So every unit has 4 critical pieces of information, starting from left to right. So the first number in every one, boxed or unboxed, is their intrinsic firepower. The capability of their own personal long arms, pistols, whatever they've got on them, that's their firepower. And you can see that the squad with 4 members is typically about double the line because it's just 2. These 3 are the total component of the game, of the composition of the game. So, in fact, it also works this way that in Combat Commander, every hex has a maximum stacking limit of 7, and that 7 being the 7 pictured individuals on there. So you can have a line squad, a line team, and a leader all in a hex without any problems. You can overstack, but there is a penalty for that, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So those 3 units could all be stacked together, or in this case here, I've got them all within Smith's command radius of 2 hexes. So that first number is their firepower. Second number is their range in hexes. So obviously the small arms only get you out so far, but 6 hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So somebody coming down on the road can get shot at from these guys in the building because they've got a 6 hex range with their carbines or their M1s. The enhancement to that is having a leader present. So the leader stacked with any unit automatically applies whatever their command number here in the hex as a bonus to all of their values. So essentially, and not his own. So he doesn't give it to himself. He's a 2, but he would then apply his bonus of 2 to the firepower of all the line squad and the line team. So now basically they are an 8 firepower for the squad and a 5 firepower for the line team. Perfect. I mean, leaders are the key to this game. Having a leader in there enhances all the values, plus it enhances their range. So now they've got a range of 6 and 8 respectively, and the third number is their movement value. So you can see that both of them have a movement of 4. That can be enhanced or degraded by having large squad weapons. Like this medium machine gun doesn't do anything. It doesn't cause any problems. But if you're towing a howitzer or a mortar, that might be. I think I have one in the staging area here. No, I don't. We'll get them. Oh, they're up on the track there. But if you look up there, the light mortar for the Germans has an encumbrance of -2. So whatever unit's carrying that, it's -2 to their movement, which you can offset by having a leader there. So +2 and a -2 in this case. That would get them moving at least. Still not the greatest as not having a full movement value. And then finally, the number in the upper right-hand corner, go back to putting them out here. This number is their morale. And what that is used for is under fire, you have to make a check for every unit that's been fired upon. And it is enhanced, like I mentioned earlier, by cover, which is terrain effects, houses, woods, scrub, shooting through hedges like bocage, things like that. That gives you a little bit of cover. But ideally, you want to be in a nice, safe space like this, or a bunker, which is like +6. So the number of the value of the cover, plus their intrinsic morale, plus whatever the leader is in the hex, all of those added together gives you your final morale number. And these are just opposed rolls. So if somebody's firing at me, they're shooting. They're shooting a weapon that has a base of 8, and it gets a little mathy. I'm not going to lie. Some people, but it's a simple arithmetic. But they have a base 8 firepower. They're going to add a couple of units to help. That makes it a 10. There's a leader there. It gets 12, and then it's all of those numbers plus this die roll. You add those together. In this case, we do the event first because it's in like an interrupt. You would take the, let's see, I had a 12 plus my 7. I would come up here, and this is just an etiquette thing on Vassal, is I show my firepower is 19, just so we don't forget, because you may do the event and it has you draw 3 other cards, and it can get away from you. So having that up in the text box is invaluable, because now, all right, this line unit here is being shot at with a 9. Let's presume that Sergeant Smith is with him. So when I hover over it, I can see them in a stack together. It's 6 plus 2 for Sergeant Smith is 8. I get 3 cover for the house, so that's 11. So I start with an 11, and I'm trying to beat a 19. If I don't beat the 19, they're going to break. So I would roll 11 versus that. And hey, look at that. I got exactly the same number, plus a sniper. So we would resolve the sniper first. So do that. Draw a sniper in L8, which is down here somewhere. I would check that against any broken weapons and break anything that I'd want. and that's a may. You don't have to break it. And then they got exactly a 19, so they don't break, but they have another status which is called suppressed, which is just a minus. They're keeping their heads down. They're under fire. They realize they're under fire, so they're not nearly as effective. There's a -1 to all of their values for as long as that stays on there until and unless you perform a recover. And the first step in a recovery is you get rid of all suppression markers. They give you that sort of free. Here, get rid of all this negative stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the unit's going to rally. Now, keep in mind that they are suppressed, but they are still unbroken here. If I go in here and break them, now I've got -1 to my 8 value. So you can see 8 minus 1 is 7. 7 plus 2 for Smith is 9 plus 3. So they actually got better when they were broken because America. So now they're where they were an 11 before, they're actually a 12 now, right? So these little modifiers all kind of pile up, and you get used to it when you start playing this actively. You're like, okay, you just do the mental calculations, and you and your friends are hopefully not too tense about it, that they're not like, no, it's not 12, it's actually 11. Oh, okay, cool, And then you just do the die rolls, and you get into a rhythm. It's just back, forth, back, forth. Now, one of the complaints of the game, I'm not afraid to talk about the warts of the Combat Commander system. Depending on who you ask, they've got an opinion. One person will say, well, this game's just, constantly inconsequential shots. They are wrong. It's just about knowing how to mass your firepower, how to take advantage of things like sustained fire to enhance. Just sometimes it's good to make small shots. Sometimes it's good to, peppering the house, the barn, whatever, with lots of inconsequential shots just to kind of keep the unit busy. But if you're the defender in the game, one of the little truisms of this to understand is time is on your side as the defender. So the defender is more inclined to make crappy little shots simply for chewing through the deck. And again, that's a complaint that people have, that it's a little gamey, but I really need to turn that down. Mine is when I upgraded to Vassal 310 or 610, it resets all the time. So let me do that real quick here. It's blowing my ears out. You could turn that down in your volume mixer. I usually bump it down to like 3 or 4 when I'm recording, just so it's there in the background, but it's not blowing your eardrums out. So yes, that's the information on the individual units. You play a move, and you take those considerations in. So this line unit right here with Smith, he's broken right now. So can somebody tell me what his movement value is for this move card? There are no wrong answers, only slightly less than correct. No volunteers? This is a volunteered army. All right. So I will... Jeff, you want to take a shot at it?
Well, yeah, is he still suppressed and broken?
He is suppressed and broken.
So just looking at that, it's 0, but he still gets the leader modifier of 2, correct?
Perfect. You got it. So normally he'd be quite a bit better than that, but his 1 and -1, they offset, so he's 0, but he gets the Sergeant Smith's bonus. So he does have an intrinsic movement of 2, which means he can just get over that hedge into open territory, because hedges here, and we'll talk about terrain in a minute, this is like, it's not cover, but it's an obstacle. So in this case, it would enhance the cost to move from one hex to another. So open is, it's 1. You just move there. Moving across an obstacle like a fence or a hedge or a road is going to make that a little more expensive. So he could just get over there because Smith's like, get your fannies over there, youngins. Obviously, this is a good time to move into terrain. Moving across open is very...
Hey Patrick,
Yeah.
Can I ask you? I'm sorry. Can I just ask you a quick question?
Of course.
So just with respect to the leaders, I noticed you didn't mark the leader suppressed there. So are they not subject to the same fire of the squad, or do you have to designate a particular target?
Perfect question. That is just me failing as a teacher here. I went through and I did not complete the fire example here. So yeah, every unit that's in a location, if they get fired upon, they will have to do a check. So Smith is also an 11 because he's in that house. So he's an 8 plus 3 for the house is 11. He also needs to make a check against 19, and he gets it. But he would suppress, and the exception to that, I say but like you guys know, but in this case here, if they were just being fired upon and they tied, they would be suppressed. If I, however, was moving and you tie on firepower versus defense when you're moving, that is not a suppression, that's a break, which is this beautiful nuance to the game because that catches everybody. Like, I tied! It's like, yeah, but you're moving, you broke. Oh! So moving has its risks. Staying safely inside houses is great, but you're not advancing towards objectives or getting off the map or whatever. So yeah, that was a great question. Thanks, Pete. So yeah, you would.
Hey, one more quick follow up if I
Sure.
can. I assume the unit needs to remain stacked with the leader to benefit from his bonus.
Correct. Yeah, he only gets it as long as they're in the hex. And there's a not to get too far afield, but you can absorb. Let's see if I'm using this example here. Let's rally Smith for a second. Now this line unit over here, this team, is activated to move. Right now their movement is 6 because there's no enhancements. Their first move is into this house, which costs them 2. Now when you're moving, one of the good etiquette for the game is to count the amount of points that you've expended along the way. So you go 1, 2. That also gives you a pause so that your opponent can either play some kind of a crafty trap or mines or whatever, or they can say, I'm going to do opportunity fire, and they play an action card from their hand. So you go through that etiquette where you're like, okay, 1, 2, pause. Now, one of the neat things is they do absorb Sergeant Smith's benefit, kinda. They get +2 to their movement, but it's only added to what they have left. Does that make sense? Some people like, oh, okay, if they moved from, let's see here, so they have movement of 4, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but now they get the extra 2 from Smith, but they only get it for as long as they're with him. So as soon as they move, oh, I get a bonus, I can go 1, 2. Well, in this case, it worked out perfectly. I get 2 more points from just adopting it from Smith, but then I blew it as soon as I left his hex, which is fine. Which that's going to happen more often than not. Is it now you have expended all of their movement. So if you play it just right, you can kind of get an enhancement. The other way to get enhancements is following roads. So if you follow a road, then you get right off the top, as long as you enter a hex with a road, you immediately get +1 bonus point for movement. So these guys now have a 5. So what we like to do is we call this the free one, because it's 0, because they're getting that. And now they have their full 4 allotment, and they go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the great thing about roads are, in this map, it's not so bad. Well, I guess in this case here, this right here, normally on the terrain chart, is a woods hex. So to enter a woods hex this way costs me 2 movement. If I follow a road, it just costs me 1. So following roads is very helpful. However, and there's always a however, in most scenarios, these roads, if you look at your terrain chart, is a -1 to your cover because there's nowhere to hide. And so if you're caught out on a road, this guy right now, his cover is a 5 because he's in open cover, which gives me nothing. He's a 6, and he's on a road, which is -1. So now, when he takes fire, he's flattening himself to the hard pack, and he's not getting nearly the amount of cover that he hopes for. So, blessing and a curse on roads. Roads get you where you want to go, but you also get shot at a little easier. So, good question.
Quick question on that. What if he leaves the road during his movement? Does he still get the bonus then?
He does, as long as he entered 1 hex. So in this case here, I moved here. Now my movement is 5 total, but I've spent 1. So really, that's why we call it the free one. So 0. So now I have 4 left over. I can go 1, 2 to get into that house, 3, 4 to get into the woods, like that. So great question.
What if you started off the road and moved onto the road? Do you still get the
Yes,
bonus? Or?
yes, he does. So as soon, and that's the difference between following the road. This is 1, 2, 3, like this. If I were like this here, this example, if he moves onto this road, he still has to pay 1, 2 to get into the woods hex on that road, but he immediately gets a bonus of 1. So he had 4 to start. He spent 2, but now he's got a bonus, so he's got 3 left over. So he can go 2, 3, 4, like that. So yeah, roads, and it should be noted that I don't have a situation here. Actually, I do right here. Perfect. So all of these little houses right here, these are cumulative effects. So the house gives me a defense value of 3 for cover, but there's a road there. So it's not about the dominant, because this is enhancing, the road is enhancing whatever's in there. So the net cover that I get for house with a road, anytime you have a building with a road, it's 2 instead of 3. And that would be true even if I had foxholes here in the middle. My foxholes would give me 3, but because it's in a road hex, you take that -1. So the net effectiveness of whatever that cover is reduced by 1. So it would be a 2 instead of a 3. Other questions? Good? All right.
Where's the terrain chart?
The terrain chart is
in
not
the
here.
module?
Yeah, it's another one that they don't put in there. I'll tell you what. I will.
Okay, gotcha.
I will. I'm going to share my screen. I have a copy of it here, and I will. Let me pull it up here. Terrain card. There we go. Of course, it's not. I've got it in Adobe, and Adobe's like, "Hey, pay for it if you want to counterclockwise it." So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Let me see if I can do this. Here we go. Share my screen. Which one am I going to share? I'm going to share this. So you can see here. I'm sorry again for this, but it's got all of the different terrain here. And you can see that it tells you what the movement cost is and what cover it provides you, and then there's oftentimes some special cases for that, and then line of sight, which is very important, whether or not you can shoot through it or it provides a hindrance. And that's the next big key concept here. Line of sight is it clear line of sight, or is it hindered by something, or is it blocked? So in this case, where line of sight is with the no symbol, it is blocked completely. You cannot shoot through it, as you would expect. You can't shoot through buildings, can't shoot through woods because they're blind line of sight. And then when you get into things, and it should be noted that on the terrain card here, it does go from bottom up. So whatever is at the bottom is the most important value of that hex. Everything above this line here, the dashed line, is an enhancement to that. Okay, and if there's something below it, that's going to have the greater impact on the cover. So moving from bottom up, you can see, oh, woods are up near the top here, so they have a cover of 2 and you cannot shoot through them. But just below them, we have these orchards and fields, and we have a few of those on our map that you can shoot through them, but you can see the line of sight now is degraded by these numbers of 3, 2, or 1. So that's a minus to the effective firepower total. So if I shot through and I had a total value of all the things combined plus my die roll of 16, well, if I'm shooting through this brush up here, I would subtract 3 from it. So now my final total that my opponent is rolling against is a 13, because it's been reduced by 3. So yeah, lots of little, adding the subtractive on the fly, get your final number, and then it's just an opposed roll of attacker versus defender's morale. If you can break them, you're golden. But yeah, you can see that, moving down through there's lots of little terrain types here. And that's one of the parts that becomes second nature for you. I'm going to stop sharing that.
A quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is the LOS and cover cumulative or different? If I shoot through the brush, it's -3, but if I'm in the brush, I'm getting a 1 for the cover, but not a 3.
Jeff, if you were in my live class, I'd be throwing a piece of candy at you, because that was a great question. So line of sight is hindrance, shooting through it. If you're shooting into it, then it's based on whatever, that's the cover. So line of sight reduces the effectiveness of the shot. Cover, if you're just shooting to the person in that, then that's the cover that they get. So in this case, shooting through brush is just terrible, but shooting into it is it just gives the defender a 1 cover. So it's not nearly as effective. So if he's a 6, he's going to get a 7 total value plus any leadership and then the die roll. But if you had to shoot through the brush to get to him, it would reduce the effectiveness of yours before you actually add his cover to it. So great question. All right, are we done with terrain chart? Any other questions on that? Perfect. Yeah.
I have a quick comment. I noticed that the tabletop simulator version of Combat Commander has a few more references. Do you want to comment on that? Is that a legal version or not a legal version?
I don't personally have a dog in that hunt. Theoretically, people who create, this came up yesterday in the Wargame Bootcamp stuff, people who create the tabletop modules should be getting permission to put those on there. Are they though? I don't know. So it's quite possible they got permission on it. But on this case, yeah, they only put just some of the basic stuff here. The rule book, of course, I put the link in the text. You can get that for free, but you can't get the playbook that has all of the scenario information. So yeah, they controlled a little bit, and I think that's quite good of them to do that. They're hoping that at least one person, that's the rule of thumb GMT always tells me, as long as one person sitting across the table has a copy of the game, then you're good to play on Vassal, right? So
are you kidding? We're war gamers. We have 4 copies of the game because it was on sale.
Exactly.
And then our friend gave us one.
That's right. This one's beat up and it's missing one nationality deck. I'll take it. Right. All right. I'm going to cancel that. I will close sharing that window. So we're back to this. All right. So where do we go from here? Any big questions on? I've given you now terrain. I've given you the cards and the units. I think we're ready to talk about this scenario.
Alternates back and forth. I guess that's where I got. You mean it's not they play a card, I play a card. It's
No,
they play...
No, they get to do up right. They get to do up to 3 orders, and then now in this case, this artillery denied does absolutely nothing, so you can't even play it because there's no radio involved. So it's basically like a command confusion card. So if you want to,
orders because of the chart on the top left, right? Okay.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, sorry. All right.
So go ahead and hit the undo button on that artillery denied, because can't play it. So all you can do is discard that one. But if you have something else that you'd like to do.
Oh, I was going to play it as an action. Can I not do that?
Great question. Yes, I did not point out that. So this dig in action is specific at the end of a time marker. So those we will go through those steps when the time advances. If you have a dig in card, at that point you could play and dig in foxholes. So right now, hold on to that card. It's useful a little bit later.
Okay, got it. I didn't see that already.
That is one of the, the learning curve on this game is getting to know the cards. The basic mechanics of them, obviously you want to be familiar with, but the actions are quite numerous. And that's the wonderful thing about it, that one of the best rule books ever written, I think, is from some disagree about learning potential, but for reference, the way he's organized it into orders, events, actions, and terrain, you can go through and find exactly what you want because they're in there alphabetically. So what does this action do? What does this event rebel do? That kind of stuff. I mean, the cards tell you, but if there's any doubt, go with what's written. And I think the rule of thumb is the card will always supersede whatever rule that it's breaking.
Got it. Okay, so I'm just going to move the... Oh, actually. All right, this is interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so Blanket Ship can activate all of these guys, too.
Okay, I'm going to do that, and then I'll move them forward. Trying to select the stack here.
So here's a little vassal tip trick for you. So if the stack is compressed, then if you just do a single click on it, you can just click and drag it like that. If it's expanded, you want to double click it to shrink it, and then click it single and move it that way. I can always tell people that are like tweezers users when they're moving the stacks around one piece at a time.
What's the movement cost for this brush over here in J3K4?
J3K4. So brush is 2 to get through. Let me look at my card here real quick. Brush movement is 2 to get through it.
Okay. 4 to there.
That's great. And he actually picked up, because he crossed over this road, he picked up a bonus point. So if that would help in the future, obviously not if you're trying to go here, but if you wanted to go there, you could get an extra point.
Oh, I had picked up a movement, so I could move this machine gun forward 1 additional hex. You're saying, right?
Yeah, but both of these are 2 costs, so.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, good. All right, I'll stop here. That's fine.
Okay. And he could have, I guess you're keeping there intentionally. Oh, the one thing we did not do, we did not set that 4 is under ally control. That's currently, but that's the only information we know is that the allies control it. So if you're happy with that move, you just hit next order. And that's 2 orders complete. If there's a third one you want to do, you can. Otherwise, you can draw back up and hit the magic eraser button.
What do you think, Jeff? You want to do anything else?
Well, do you want to move that unit in 4 someplace, since you could have activated them with the lieutenant?
I left him there only because it's the victory point and it's worth a bunch. So I figured he could sit and defend it.
And they are elite after all. Stay here. I said stay here.
Yeah, that works just fine.
Okay. So draw back up whatever cards you're missing, and then hit that eraser, and it is now the Germans' turn to do up to 3 orders.
Okay. Jack, are you able? Are you able to?
No, I can't see the German order cards.
I guess I could reveal them, right?
Yeah, you sure can. Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
So now everybody should be able to see them. I guess I want to do a move, right? I mean, what else?
That's right.
That's
Got to
really
get
the
there.
only thing.
You can't get there from here.
Right. There.
I wonder if this is me, but
Can I go to orders? Or sorry, go ahead.
in Vassal, the cards for the Americans, maybe because they're not, may not revealed. It's actually kind of really hard to see them in Vassal.
You can there's a little magnifier, so if you can stretch out that window a little bit and you can zoom in on them so that you can see. You can also hover over them. I think the hovering no, I guess not when they're in the card window, but and the little border covers the order kind of up a bit. It's just a little weird. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I've got an AFK for a bit, guys. I'll talk to you in a bit. I'm just going to listen, but
all right,
I might drop in again.
Thanks, Jack.
Fine. Okay. It's like the right-click menu wasn't available to play order unless I hit them again, so I hit it and revealed. So, okay. All right, so we're doing the move order. And with weapons, they're just carried by 1 unit by a line or a team, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. There's no penalty or anything like that for
Not unless they have an encumbrance, but those light machine guns, you see there's a dash there, so they're not too heavy.
What that value was. Okay, I see. Okay. Great. So, sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. What I can activate? Okay, I can activate 1 unit or 1 leader, and
so you could do Esser, and he could get everybody within 2 hexes of him.
Right. Okay. All right. I probably should have put him here and hindsight, but well. All right, well, I'll just activate use Esther. Okay. So I'll go.
You can also drag a box over the, all the units that you want and hit Control A, which will put a little activation halo on them. So that activation is just a good way that that your opponent can see, which one you're committing to moving with that action, because then they will get a red halo after the order's done.
Hey, Patrick, is terrain inherent, or is it only blocked if the line sort of physically crosses the picture?
What a great question. It is the latter. So if the line touches any depiction of that's what matters. If it's just in the hex, it doesn't matter unless your line of fire would touch it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay. So I guess I know I'll move this guy here. And you're able, yeah, if you have suggestions, Jack, or I mean, whatever, it's just a learning thing, anyways. How do you? Sorry, I'm struggling with Vassal. I haven't done this in a while. How do you see the units?
If you just hover over it, it'll show you.
There it is. Okay,
Yeah,
I see. Okay. So, and you say it's 2 movement points to enter a building?
Correct.
Okay. We got 1, 2. Oh, I get 1, 2. All right, let me just. So if I go 1, 2, or do you see it when I drag or not? I'm not clear.
When you let go of it and when it moves a hex, that's when we see it.
Well, if I move the units from B3 to D4, I get the bonus, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Even if I move off the road right away.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you touch that road at some point in the movement, you get a +1.
Okay. All right. So 1, 2, 3.
And the etiquette is to do it a hex at a time, just so that your opponent can react to it. Because as soon as you're in line of sight and range, he may want to take opportunity fire.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I'll move that. Okay, okay, so that's 1 movement point,
Okay.
2 movement points, and I get a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still at 2.
Now, for an opportunity fire, that's an action.
Correct.
Right?
So you play the card that says fire, and it's order action. So if you right-click on it and say stop, you can play an action to fire, and you can do that at any point that at the first point you can see him. So
yeah, I haven't seen one of those cards pop up yet.
Oh,
So I wasn't sure what it looked like.
That's the bluffing part of the game, right? He doesn't know if you've got one or not, so yeah, he's gonna.
Okay, and then I'll do 3 and 5.
Perfect. Okay, and you will then take control of number 1. There you go.
How did you do that?
I went down to the bottom to the things, and I just right-clicked on it, and I said axis
See,
control.
down below the hex, I see. Okay, got you. Okay. And I guess I should have taken control of number 2 as well.
Yeah, go ahead and you can do that.
I see. Oh, cool. Okay. And sorry, and forest is 2, or is this forest or bocage?
That is forest. Yeah, it's 2.
Okay. All right, 1, 2. All right, so I'll go this move. It's 1. It's 2. 3. It's still 3, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great way to do that. Yep.
5.
Okay.
Okay. And
Where's the fire card when you need it?
Yes, I ask that all the time.
Especially with a machine gun pointing right at him.
Yep.
3.
This is where the ASL players are pulling their hair out because they're like, "But I want to," and it's not that you can't. It's just that in the narrative, you're shooting small arms, and it's just not affecting them getting into that building.
Okay, so I guess that's done for the move. So now I click the next order button. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Okay.
And now you still have 2 orders left if you want to do something else.
I don't really. I guess
Still
I could.
got the units with the machine gun you can move.
I'm sorry, what?
You still got that one you haven't activated yet with the light machine gun you could do something with.
Move card, though.
Yes, that's the key. You want to move, but can you? Can you? That's right.
I mean, does it make. I mean, sorry. Would it make sense to like play a smoke grenade action? Could I do that now, or?
You could, yeah, you could have done it during this move action. So you could just play it, and then you could throw some smoke out adjacent to one of the units, provided they have, I think, boxed movement, right? So these parachutists could do that.
How long does smoke last then?
Adjacent, I was thinking of doing it past the bridge, but okay, I see it has to be adjacent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smoke lasts for either if it gets blown away from a breezy event, then there's wind all the time that pops up, and or at the end of the time advance, then one smoke marker has to be dissipated by the person who advanced the time. So that way they're finite. And there's nothing worse than having this beautiful blanket of smoke all around you, protecting you, and then the winds come along and blow them all away because of an event. It's sad.
So, I mean, the only thing I could do is I could possibly fire. How do you do the click thing?
The alt click.
Yeah, okay. I could possibly fire at this unit here, I guess, from here.
I don't know that you have line of sight, because...
Is there a tool
The
for
woods
that?
would be clipping in the building.
Yeah, the line of sight tool, the LOS at the top.
Okay.
If you click on it, and then it kind of goes gray a little bit, you could just click and hold a line from start to finish, and it will tell you the range, and you'll see a red line. And you can, when you let go of it, you can see, oh, it's touching this building right here.
Do you have to declare the shot before doing a line of sight, or can you do it whenever you want?
This is not ASL, sir. No, that's right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, no. The line of sight tool is just for anybody's benefit. So yeah, you can be very wary about that.
Can you see other people's line of sight? I just did one. I didn't know if you guys.
No,
could see it or not.
I can't. I just see that you did it, but I can't see where you are. So that's kind of the caginess of it. You're like, he's looking at the line of sight. He might shoot me, and it could also just be a bluff.
F4 to K8, I think, right? If I calculated that right, or
from here to here?
Yes.
Yeah. So in a subsequent turn, because these guys have already been activated and completed their move, so they only get one order.
Activated. Oh, I forgot that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that red means they're done for this turn.
Okay. All right. So I don't think there's anything I can really do then, is there?
Not unless you got another move order. And even then,
you all can see my hand, right? Can't you? So I mean,
let me see. No, there's nothing else you can do. So you got no line of sight, and you don't have anything broken. So you will just declare that's the end of your turn. And
should I discard first?
No. You played an order already, so you can only discard if you play no orders from your hand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So I click the next order again then.
You can click the little eraser at the top on the far right. That will clear the halos off everything, and then click your draw a card to fill that slot. And then now it's the Americans again.
Time, or should it have, or?
No, that's just a die roll that's on there. So if that had come up as a die roll, if that's what you're speaking of, that would advance time. But since it didn't come up as a die roll, you're good.
Okay, I need to process that. So the time, I guess I'm thinking of game turns.
Yeah. Basically, it's impulses. So it's just you keep going back and forth until the end of this time slot, which either happens when a deck is depleted or a time trigger comes up as an event.
I see. Okay, got you. Okay.
All right. So Americans, what would you like to do?
And just to remind myself,
three cards. So.
Yeah, go for it. And advance is its own card, right, Patrick?
Yes, advance is its own card, yeah. And that just lets you move one hex without being shot at, just from one space to another.
And because I discarded 3 cards, that basically meant I just redraw and it moves back over the German side.
That's right. You're going to have to do that at some point.
Okay, I am done, and we got a much better selection of cards now.
Yeah, now
All
we're
right.
talking.
Now Esser wants to talk about perhaps firing up the machine gun, I would say.
Oh, right. Okay. So, let me.
Yeah, you don't have to do that, but you can play the fire card. Usually that's as an interrupt, but people like it.
Okay, so I do play fire.
Right. And you activate whichever units are going to fire.
Okay, so I think only these. How do I activate again? I just
So
select them.
if you highlight and then do Control A.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Okay.
These guys could be activated by Esser, and they also do have a shot down to here.
Oh, you don't have to fire at the same spot. Okay.
No. Sometimes it's quite nice to just fire all independently. So the
And
machine.
Sorry, what is this light green stuff? And I can see through. That's brush.
Yeah, it's brush.
Oh,
Yeah, small
I think we
hedges.
talked about that. So I can. Okay. Yeah, so I'll activate them too. And okay.
And so the normal process, the etiquette of shooting is you indicate which units are participating. So you could do squads can fire independent of their support weapon. You could fire them all at once if you want. It's whatever their base is. You pick kind of the best firepower, and then for every unit and weapon that participates into the fire group, you just add +1 to that. So you can get 7 as your base, and then 3 other things get you up to a 10 before the die roll. So if these guys are shooting, perhaps like the Fallschirmjägers here, they would be a 5 because their base firepower is 5, and that's better than the light machine gun, right? Then Esser will give them a +2, so now they're a 7. And if you throw in the light machine gun in the same shot, that gives you a +1. So now it'd be 8 total. And then
Can the Germans also play the spray fire card?
absolutely, yes, provided that the conditions are met. So if they can see both targets, then yes, the spray fire, and if they've got boxed range, right.
So should we do that? Sorry, I don't know people's voices except Patrick's. Was that Jack or yeah? Saying
No, that was Byron. Yeah, sorry, my plumber's here, so I'm just gonna step in every now and then.
Okay. All right, so I guess I would drag the. Okay. Yes. So let's. The units on F4 are going to attack the units in. Let me just click.
So you can use Shift T for target. Yep. So what that will do is that'll put a nice little ring around them, saying that's my target. Shift T.
Okay.
And looking at that. Every unit, actually the Fallschirmjägers, they only have with an enhancement a range of 6. So do they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? They do. So both of them can reach there with Esser's command ability. So it really is then just up to you. Do you want to, fire them all as one big group, or do you want to fire them as 2 individual shots? Do you want to fire them at different targets? Those are, and that may or may not be enhanced by cards in hand. So you've got spray fire potentially that you could use. Depending on what you're shooting at. I don't think you can see both of these targets, so spray fire may not help there. Spray fire might help this guy shoot into perhaps both of these.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, you're about to throw some lead, and it's just that's part of the strategy of the game, or the tactical nuance of the game is what is the best way to execute the fire order to am I trying to break him? Obviously I want to break him, I want to eliminate him. So it really just depends on if you're just trying to slap and tickle, draw some cards, or if you're really trying to punch him hard to eliminate a wounded soldier.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's just do.
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. I have to drop for my next session. Patrick, this is awesome. I just wanted to say
I will see you.
I
will see you in an hour. Take care.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
All right, sure. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, I only got a couple minutes also.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Let's do this quick fire, and I think that'll be a good overall example. So, what would you want to shoot them, let's just say you're shooting them all at once. So it'd be the Fallschirmjäger, it's 5, plus Esser's 2. We're going to throw in the light machine gun to add a +1. So 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you're shooting down here. So you would now just draw 8 plus the axis roll, and you'd add those two numbers together. That's your firepower.
4 for the machine gun. I pick one or the other, and then the other is a +1. Or,
Exactly. So the Fallschirmjägers are a little better because they're 5. So with the Esser's enhancement, that makes them a 7, which is better than a 6 with the machine gun. So then everything else is just +1 because it's fire grouped.
I see. Okay. All right. So like you say, 7 plus 1, so it's 8. Okay, and then over here it's.
Yeah, in the die roll, you just hit axis roll.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So you do 8 plus 4, and you just type 12 up there, right? And now Smith in his stack, there's 3 units in there with him. Yes. Ah, great. Perfect timing. So now he's in a house, right? He is in a house. So that concealment card, before he makes his roll, allows him to reduce the firepower of that shot by 3. So now it will just become a 9. And what's great about this is if you get that firepower low enough that you're just drawing cards, you're what we call trigger checks, because there's no way he can break any of the units. So he's just drawing one card at a time to see if he gets a time trigger or an event or something else. So go ahead and do that one at a time. Usually you just say, squad, then team, then leader. That's kind of the normal way to do that. But none of these guys are going to be able to be broken, so you're just checking to see what you get.
Yeah, I'll go full squad first.
Okay. Perfect.
Then the team, or half squad.
Good.
And then the leader.
Okay, so we have our first trigger, which is a sniper. So you'd come down to the bottom there and say random hex allied draw. And you draw that, and it puts this. So if there was a German out here somewhere within this radius, you could hit him with a sniper. And that's combat. That's really all there is to it. Why don't we let you do this Fallschirmjäger here, so you can try some of the shots on these guys.
Okay, so I'd use the spray fire then.
Yes, yeah. So you'd right click on that and say play as action. Perfect. And
Okay.
both of them have box firepower, so you can still add them together. It's 5 plus 1 for the squad weapon, and then it's whatever you roll, that total is now applied to both of these hexes right here.
Okay. Oh, and I should have targeted them. Okay, so now I just do the roll.
Yep. So
10.
6, 10. Okay, and now it's going to be reduced by 3 because you're shooting through this hindrance here. So your final number is going to be a 7. But that's that's 3 cards he's still got to pull.
Okay.
And I'll get a 1 because of the I'm in.
Yes, yeah. So you're pretty secure across the board because you have leadership and you're in the woods and you're in brush. So you're just pulling 3 individual cards, whatever order you want.
We'll start on the machine gun squad.
Okay, we have an event. So now you pause and you come down and you do allied draw for the event. Nope, back that up.
Oops, sorry. Wrong button.
That's right. Go ahead and hit the, I got the undo. All right, go ahead and hit the allied draw. All right, battlefield integrity. So if you had eliminated any of your opponent's units, which you have not, you would get a point right there, or more. So late game, that could be quite a boon for you. All right, and you move on. So
And then the other hex, the squad, or half squad.
Perfect.
And then the leader.
Another event. Okay, so what you got now? The hero arrives. Okay, so this would allow you to bring in the hero, who has all kinds of wonderful capabilities. He can be activated multiple times during a game, or during a turn. So you can literally put all 3 orders on that guy. He can keep going. He can grab the flamethrower. He can run up, throw grenades, destroy a bunker. He's amazing. We would bring him out, and if you put him into a hex with a unit that's broken, he would rally them immediately, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to, just for grins, I'll bring out the U.S. Leader here. His name is is Private Lucas. Yeah, he's the hero. And I'll just bring him out there, and you can place him in one of the hexes with a friendly unit.
Does he count for stacking?
He does count towards stacking. He is a leader in all intents and purposes. He just has a leadership radius of 0. So he can activate units in the stack. He just doesn't enhance their capabilities. And there you go. You have now completed what we would consider the basics of basic training for Combat Commander. Any final questions before I cut you loose?
No, it was really great.
Fantastic. Well,
yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I heard so much about it in the past. I played a lot of the other tactical games, but never any of the Combat Command. I wasn't sure if I'd like the card type system or not, but it actually does work pretty well.
It is a lot of fun, and like I said, it's management of chaos. If you're okay with that, and anything can happen at any time, you're good. In the text box or in the text channel here for this, I've also put links to the ladder, our Combat Commander ladder, so if you want to check that out, there's information about that, and also my channel with all the videos that I've recorded from my ladder plays. So they've got a whole playlist of Combat Commander stuff along with some other tutorials. So I do have a tutorial on there that's just as in-depth as what we did here with some other fellows. So if you want to go back and watch that at any time, that will probably help you, I hope. And then you can see a lot of live play with opponents. So thank you very much for being here.
I got one final question before you go.
Sure.
One of the guys whose games I purchased, he doesn't like the Pacific version of this because of some rule. Can you explain?
Yes.
Do you have a comment?
I do have. The microphone comes over my face. Got a comment? Yes. To me, I love Pacific, and I was just talking to Volko Brunke, who came on to our ladder the other night, and he and I are in the same mindset. We love it because there are just a few little teeny tiny tweaks that Chad did that he learned from this that removes some of the randomness. So basically, one of the big changes is instead of the recover card, there is a revive card that you play that has 1 to 5 points, and you spend that to remove a suppression, to rally a unit, etc. like that. So it gives you a little more control than just making die roll checks on everything. I think what your friend is probably speaking of is what's known as the asset denied card, and essentially any unit that can see an enemy across the field, you can play that asset deny and say, I broke your machine gun, and they're like, what is this, a Jedi mind trick? So it's probably what he doesn't like, which is funny because it goes from one end of the chaos swing of I don't like this game, it's too random, whatever, to he shouldn't have that kind of power, which it really, I mean, because you have the capability of doing asset request, which is the same thing. You're just fixing that machine gun or whatever, so you're not subject to all the die rolls that you are as you would be in Europe. So Pacific really made those 2 changes, and it also changed the stacking rules on you don't have to break down a squad into 2 half squads and eliminate half of it. You also can you just reduce their cover. So that's another nice thing too.
All right.
That's my comment.
I wasn't sure if it was a rule like, I don't know if you played the lock and load tactical, but in that version, the Japanese the Japanese don't ever shake. And the whole core context.
That is one other aspect of this. The Japanese, you see our surrender track up here. The Japanese never surrender. It's also true in our partisan expansion for this. The partisans never surrender. They just get dispersed. So that's there. I mean, they are amazing in close combat, but it simulates the Pacific theater so well that it is my favorite. That's my baby. That's one I love to play most. But I play this one so much because we do 10 months out of the year on the ladder and only 2 months on Pacific, so it's okay. Right. Yeah.
And just as a side note, if anyone wants to buy my copy of Combat Commander for $1,200, it is for sale.
$1,200. Is it super special? Or is it just
but it would cover the plumbing estimate that I just got.
Yeah. Oh man, water heaters. Hopefully was it full of sludge or was it just the heating element?
It's an on demand, so it's the pump.
Oh man, yeah, like a Renai or something. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry
Thanks.
for that, but good luck. Here's a recover card for you.
Question.
Yeah.
You might want.
Yeah, where's that asset recovery card? I need that right now.
That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, I only have Combat Commander Pacific. I got that on the sale because the other ones sold out. But
right.
Do you have Do you ever do solitaire, or is there any? It's sometimes hard to find face to face. I guess with the Opera Fire, it's sort of difficult, but
Yeah, I don't play solitaire on this because there's too much of the game that is fun because of the. I don't know if he's got a fire card. I really want to move. You can do like some people use the bot and use the CDG stuff to flip over or whatever. And I've seen the bots that people have created on there. Personally, I do not use them. I'm not a solo player unless the game is designed for solo. So like the Hunters and the Hunted and Silent Victory stuff like that. I play that because there are charts and graphs and things that you do as part of the mechanism. But this game does not work well. I don't personally think so, but people will shout me down on that because they like to play it solo. But that's why I created the ladder, because I've got 100 people that want to play all the time every month. So that's why I think opposed play is really the only way to go with this game.
thanks.
Sure. Well, thank you all. And I will, like I said, post this up on
Excellent.
YouTube, and we'll see if some people click it, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the ladder here pretty soon. It was very self-serving of me to do this, so thank you all for being here.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
take care, everyone.
Have a good day.